yourself free. Take your mind into another place and time. Free yourself up to find the universal mind. The universal mind. The universal mind.
Live from Hollywood, it's Paranormal Tonight. I'm Mark Summers, and now, here's your host, Dan Harary.
Hello there. Welcome to another edition of Paranormal Tonight. My name is Dan Harary. Normally, we are live from Hollywood. Tonight, we are at Contact in the Desert, which is in Indian Wells, California, near Palm Springs. And we're at the beautiful Renaissance Resort Hotel. And lots of people are here. We're expecting 2,000 to 3,000 people, and all the top UFO researchers and experts pretty much in the world are here. If you're in Southern California the next few days and you want to take a nice little drive out to Indian Wells, the tickets are still available. Contactinthedesert.com for tickets. And I'm running the media room as a publicist. I'm the PR contact here for the media, and I'm also running the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance booth, and I will be speaking at a few sessions as well. So check us out. If you're in the neighborhood, please come by, and we'd love to see you. I have a special guest tonight. He's a dear friend of mine and an award-winning filmmaker, and I'm going to read a little bio here, if I can read my notes, and then we'll bring him in. Ron James is an award-winning filmmaker, on-camera personality, writer, editor, researcher, content creator, and entrepreneur. His 2023 documentary, Accidental Truth, UFO Revelations, narrated by Matthew Modine, won 30 Film Festival Awards and was mentioned by name at the beginning of the July 2023 UAP congressional hearing with David Grush by U.S. Representative Tim Burchett, who has become rather good friends with Ron James. That film has been called one of the most important UFO documentaries of all time. Ron James will be releasing the sequel to that film called Accidental Truth Next later this year. A longtime UFO, UAP, ET researcher and expert, Ron has long been a regular guest on many UFO podcasts and TV shows, including multiple appearances on Ancient Aliens. He is the co-founder of MUFON Television, an online TV channel boasting the world's largest collection of commercial-free UAP-related material. He also holds the title of Media Relations Director for MUFON. And for those of you who don't know, MUFON stands for the Mutual UFO Network. It was founded in 1969. Ron has created many feature-length documentaries and dozens of original independent TV series episodes. He's very prolific. And he also is a founding member of a group that Stephen Bassett and I launched last year called the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. He's one of our original members. And he's sitting about 5 feet to my right here in a beautiful room at the Renaissance, at Contact in the Desert. So, Race, let's bring in my brother, Ron James. There he is.
Right. How's it going?
You look like John Travolta from Saturday Night Live.
I know, it's the jacket. You know, after that intro, I'm not sure we're going to have any time left.
I know. I think we used up. Oh, that's it, folks. Thanks for coming. We got to go. See you later. All right. So thank you, Ron, for doing this for me. And thank you to our members of our audience. I greatly appreciate that you are here. And I just met Sky, who's been Ron's friend for quite some time. Hi there. Okay,
Sky's
Ron,
here,
there she is. All right, so let's rock and roll here. Ron, I always like to ask my guests a little bit about their background, their childhood, where they grew up. So, starting at the beginning, where you're from, what did you do as a kid? What kind of interests did you have? What kind of things did your family do? Anything to give us a little color about you, the person.
Well, sure. I grew up in San Diego, and I was always artistic, and I was always into the kind of paranormal stuff as a kid growing up. And I ended up getting my high school diploma early and starting businesses. And I was in graphics and advertising design and marketing back when you were still using rub-on letters to make flyers. And I got an interest in doing video production. Um, I hired a guy to help me make an instructional video about one of the graphics things I did. And this was about the time of the OJ trial. I had so much fun making that video that I sold off my graphics company and bought half of Joe Scarborough's recording studio, the Joe Scarborough that has the TV shows now. He used to own a
Right.
recording studio in Pensacola. And so I bought half of that under the condition that we did video production. We added it to audio recording. And since then, I just never looked back. I'm completely self-taught as a video guy. And I'm up to about 47 national awards for different things that I've done in video. So it's been very, very challenging and rewarding at the same time.
That's great. Are you an artist? Are you an actual artist?
You mean like drawing things?
Yeah, drawing, painting, or it sounds like you were a graphic artist. Is that right?
Yeah. I had a graphics company. We did advertising design. We designed ad campaigns. We designed marketing campaigns. Back in the day when marketing actually was responsible for getting results. Nowadays, when you hire somebody to market, don't count on anything getting done. But back in the day, you were accountable for results. And that was,
So you had
to really be able to do it.
So you had your own business. You were a fairly young man, it sounds like.
Yeah, I've never worked for a company I didn't try to overthrow.
That's a very good line. I like that. That's very funny. When did you first get interested in the UFO phenomenon? How and why? Where did that come from?
Well, it's a true story of fate. I've always been like an armchair aficionado. I'd read UFO magazine. Back in the day, Nick Pope used to write a column for UFO magazine, and Stanton Friedman was on TV. And so I grew up with that kind of stuff. And in the actually it was in the late 90s, Steve Bassett, I met him in Sedona, and he hired me because I had a video production company at the time. And he hired me to go to Washington, D.C. and live stream his X conference. And that was when I got to meet all these guys I'd seen on TV and really get a feel for what the depth of the deception that we're dealing with really is. And I kind of got the bug. And so I did the X conferences. I worked closely with Steve all the way through producing the Citizen Hearing on Disclosure. And I started making UFO documentaries and shows. And so that was the late 90s.
Okay. So you've known Steve Bassett for quite some time.
I've known Steve Bassett for a very long time. Yeah, I've been one of his biggest benefactors in many ways.
Well, what's funny, Ron, you and I have something in common. So last year, I met Steve Bassett just a year ago, and he brought me here to Contact in the Desert exactly 1 year ago, and he introduced me to. I don't think I met you last year, but he introduced me to Nick Pope and Paul Hynek and Ron Janix and Dolan, and then right after, concurrently, Steve Bassett and I created the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. So he kind of opened the door to this world for me, and it sounds like he kind of did the same for you. But you 30 years ago, me 1 year ago. So you and I have Steve Bassett, I guess, either to blame or to thank. I'm not sure.
Yeah, gosh, now I got to reevaluate my thinking on the timing. Wasn't that long ago. I think I did the first X conference that I ever did in maybe 2006 or 7. So that's about right. And then we did the Citizen Hearing on Disclosure it was 2012 that we did that.
I see. Okay.
So it's still about 13, 14 years.
Yeah, you still got quite a jump on me. I've only been in this area 1 year. It's just been 1 year. I'm a quick learner, and I'm like a sponge. I absorbed a lot of things and met a lot of wonderful people, including you. When
I
did
made
you?
the Disclosure Dialogues, which was my first full-length UFO documentary. It ended up being a 5-disc set, and it won the EBE awards back in the day. And then I've done a bunch of documentaries about other paranormal things and new science, nature, reality, all that kind of thing.
Did that first one put you on the map, would you say?
Well, it depends on what map you're looking at, I suppose. When you're doing these specialty films that don't cost a lot to make and you're appealing to very small audiences, really, especially when they're heady. The first series I did was Bigger Questions, and there was 3 parts to it. There was one called The Nature of Reality. There was one called The Fusion of Science and Spirit. And then there was one called The Psychic Matrix. And it was back right around the time the Matrix movies came out. And so consider how far we've come with studying these topics. Back then, it was just a pioneering set. It had scientists like Russell Targ and Dean Radin and Amika Swami and John Hagelin and just a bunch of physicists who at the time were right on the edge of really trying to crack the reality code.
And how did you go about? Did Steve Bassett or Nick Pope, did they help introduce you and open doors to some of these heavyweight people so you could interview them? How did you perceive those people?
No, I was one of the very first people that would go to a conference and tape a piece of blue fabric on the wall of a conference room and fish hook these guys in as they're walking by. Hey, Dr. Radin, come here for a second. Would you sit right there? And back then, as you know, we're here at Contact, it's hard for people to do that anymore. But back then it was really easy. And you could go to a conference, you could meet all the people you really cared about, you could set up an interview spot, and you can make a whole series of documentaries from it. It's harder and harder to do now because there's so many people trying to do it, and the speakers are they're only available so much. So, but back then I was one of the very first people doing it. And the whole Bigger Question series that came out, 3 DVDs. Was filmed almost entirely at the International Conference of Science and Consciousness in New Mexico. And this was long before I met Steve Bassett or moved to Sedona for the first time.
So you were a guerrilla, literally like a guerrilla filmmaker. You were like, hey, Richard Dolan, I need you to shove the mic right in his face.
I'm the OG guerrilla filmmaker. In fact, it's funny because this year at Contact is like, well, we can't have people doing that. And I'm like, well, I've been doing that for years, but now everybody wants to do it. And so, who's that guy that has that technique in making documentaries that everybody calls attention to, where he's panning across photographs, and it was the so-and-so technique.
Ken Burns.
Yeah, the Ken Burns technique. One day, probably long after I'm dead, they're gonna be like, yeah, the people hanging up green screens at hotel conferences and shooting interviews. That's the Ron James effect. So I'll be known for something.
You inspired a lot of people. A lot of documentary people in the paranormal world have followed in your footsteps. And like you said, and you and I are both in charge this year here at this show. You and I are in charge.
I know. I
documentary filmmakers.
People, they're all younger versions of me, and I'm having to kick them out. It's really sad. But you graduate to the point where if you want to interview somebody, most of the time you'll just go ahead and call them on the phone, arrange it through their manager, and fly to wherever they are and do it. But
right.
I mean, that was impossible for the longest time for me, and it's impossible now. So we have these kids that are coming up doing podcasts, and everybody's doing it, and everybody wants to make the next doc that shows up on Amazon. And so, with media being easier and easier to create and costing less money, more and more people are trying to do it. And so it's a whole different landscape, as both of us are finding out.
Yeah. I mean, you really pretty much are the father of this genre of filmmaking.
Podcaster. I am your father.
I would say you're the godfather, the grandfather, but you're not a very old person.
And really, it's true, because if you look on my other YouTube channel, it's called Evolve TV, or you could just search Ron James Bigger Questions. I was doing what now is considered these podcasts on an actual studio built set with bringing people in, multi-camera. I was doing that stuff 15 years ago, and now tons and tons of people are doing it. But I was one of the first people making programs of that nature for the internet.
Yeah, you are one of the pioneers in this field. I'm curious about MUFON. I only found out about MUFON in 2007. I was in a paranormal bookstore and waiting for a friend to go to a movie. He was late and the movie was next door. So I killed some time and I walked into a bookstore and they had a paranormal books section run. And I'm like, wow, crop circles, the pyramids, Stonehenge, Betty and Barney Hill, Richard Dolan's books, Zachariah Sitchin, Eric Van Daniken. And I'm like, wow, because I had never seen any of those in my life. And this is 2007. I bought 12 books. I remember it was 12 books. I carried them home in my arms like this. I read them all. And that's when I heard about MUFON. I just didn't know about MUFON. So my question now is, how did you become aware of MUFON, and then how did you evolve? Because you're such a big part of it now.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. For those who don't know, MUFON stands for the Mutual UFO Network. And when Project Blue Book ended back in 1955, MUFON was founded. It grew out of a couple other organizations. It wasn't originally MUFON. But their goal was to pick up the work of Project Blue Book from a civilian standpoint. And over the years, and through a lot of ups and downs, they've grown to the largest organization in the world with active field investigators in a bunch of different countries, 7,000 members worldwide, and lobbyists in Washington, our own laboratories, all kinds of really cool stuff to be really the definitive civilian organization surrounding the topic. And I was hosting. I was actually the MC for a conference for Paula Harris, and I was just back in the day of kind of pioneering early internet TV channels. And the then director of MUFON and Jaime Maussan were backstage, and Jaime had a little laptop set up, and he was streaming it to Mexico, and he was standing next to the guy from MUFON, and he says, you guys should do this, something like this. And the director looked down at him and said, yeah, that's a good idea. I immediately, this is pretty funny, I immediately ran up to my hotel room, registered MUFONTelevision.com, came back down and said, I have an idea. And so we created a joint venture 50-50, and I developed the channel, and now it's integrated into MUFON, and you have the option of subscribing to it when you become a member. It's the largest archive of commercial-free UFO material in the world online, and that's where it's going. So I create original content for it, and we make it available to the public, whether they're a MUFON member or not.
That is a great story. That's so Ron James, that story.
Well, sometimes you just have to seize an opportunity, right? So I literally did. I ran up, I registered the name, I came back down, I said, look, I'm not trying to impose. If we can't move forward with anything, I'll give you this domain. I'm not trying to, capture your name or anything. But it took me about 6 months to negotiate it. MUFON kicked in a little bit of money, and I put in the rest, a significant amount. And it's been good since then. And then when they changed their command structure, their leadership structure, I was invited to take on an official role as their media relations director. So that's pretty fun because I get to work with all the shows like Ancient Aliens and handle all the contracts and licensing of MUFON images. So I really have some great relationships out there with some of these shows and some of these people.
Yeah, and you yourself have been interviewed on countless. Every time I watch a UFO documentary, I see you, Steve Babbitt, and Nick Pope, and Richard Dolan. I'm like, and I say to my daughter when she's visiting me, and I go, I'm friends with all those guys. I know I am. Not only I know them,
it's
I'm
really
friends
funny
with all those.
Because I grew up, I'm not aging Nick, but I grew up reading his stuff and seeing him on TV, and some of these other people, and the idea that I would even be mentioned in the same categories with those guys is still mind-boggling to me. I'm not sure I'm at their level, but honestly, it's very gratifying to be doing what I'm doing.
I understand. Like when I created the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, and I asked Richard Dolan and Nick Pope and you to join, and you all said yes. And I'm like, wow, Dolan and Pope and Ron James all want to be in my little group. So I understand exactly.
Well, hey, let's face it was a no-brainer.
Flattering.
Ufologists don't make any money. It didn't cost anything to join, so that was one. It says Hollywood in it, so that's cool. Maybe you can help us get on TV. I mean, it wasn't a hard sell.
Yeah. It was one of my better brainstorms that I had, because I was having lunch with Bassett, and we were in Hollywood, and he said to me, we had a 3-hour lunch, and at the end he said, "What can we do together, Dan?" And I just I looked at the ceiling, and I went back down. I go, "Stephen, we're going to create," and I thought, I'm Hollywood, he's Disclosure. We're going to have an alliance. So I just said the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, and he goes, "Yeah, that's right." It literally came out of the sky. We shook hands, and then that was it. That's how it was born.
That's really funny. You know, Steve been kicking around Hollywood for a while trying to put something like that together. So you were like his godsend in Hollywood coming, and the alliance has been working so far.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he opened doors for me, and I gave him entree into Hollywood. You know, he and I are peanut butter and chocolate. We work well together. Race, can we see image number 1, please? My brother Race, my producer. If we have Race, there he is. Okay, so here we go. This is your baby, Ron. So your documentary, Ron, your documentary came out last year, Accidental Truth Revelations. I've watched it twice. It was a huge success. It's won dozens of awards. It was cited by Tim Burchett during the David Grush hearings. You had to be flattered by that. Tell us how I know. That was wonderful. That was so cool. But tell us how you went about making Accidental Truth UFO Revelations, why it's important to the world, and how it impacted your life.
Sure. So when I first decided to make another UFO documentary, because I made the Disclosure Dialogues back in 2010 and released it in 2012, I didn't want to make another UFO film unless I could really move the ball. And in 2017, I had the chance to do an exclusive interview with Lou Elizondo right when he came out. It was one of the only sit-down studio quality interviews he's done that big media and his handlers didn't have control over. And he said a few things in that interview that were just absolutely mind-boggling to me, and literal bombshells. And I sat on the interview for a long time, and I finally got to the point where I wanted to do something with it. And originally we were going to call it the Elizondo tapes, because I had the interview with Lou, and I had some other interviews with him that MUFON had been involved in, and I could piece together a bombshell of a doc just centered around him. But as the project evolved, I got some more bombshells from people like Chris Mellon and people like Dr. Gary Nolan. And I realized that what I was getting, I didn't invent the phrase accidental truth, although I thought I did at the time, but I was getting the people to say things they didn't mean to say about huge bombshell things related to the UFO topic. And it just created a snowball. And so I started with the Lou Elizondo interview, and then I went on and I collected interviews with some of the biggest people in the field and put it out at just the right time. And so a lot of people will ask, what's the movie going to do for my knowledge of UFOs? If you're a seasoned person in the field, you're going to learn something new and you're going to be entertained by it. If you're somebody who doesn't know much about it but wants to be brought up to speed as much as possible in an hour and a half, then this is the movie to watch. And shortly after, we got David Grush coming forward, confirming the information that we put out in the movie. So I feel like I've been a part of this disclosure process in a big way, and nothing could be more gratifying than that.
You caught a perfect wave, man. You did. That movie caught such a wonderful, perfect wave. Race, can we see number 2, please? So look at this. Look at all the awards. You've won so many awards. What are some of your favorite festival awards that you won for this film?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually an old graphic. So we're up to 27 actual wins. And you know, people will say, well, I've been in 27 film festivals. I'm like, no, you don't understand. You were in the festival, but you didn't win it. And so we've got first or second place of 27 of them. My favorite one out of all was the Fortean Film Festival. I think it was. We won 5 categories. We won Best Director, Best Educational Film, Best Documentary, Best Trailer, and did I say Best Director yet? There was 5 categories total that we won. Oh, and Matthew Modine won for Best Narrator. So in one film festival, we won 5 separate prizes. So that was pretty gratifying.
That's wonderful. I mean, it just speaks to the level, the quality. It's a wonderful film. It's very well done. You have a major movie star as your narrator. You cut the perfect wave. You got all the right people, and then Tim Burchett mentions it in Congress. I mean, just perfect wave. We have to take a break. It's 25 after. Let's take a little break, pay some bills, come back, and we'll have part 2 with our special guest, filmmaker Ron James, live from Contact in the Desert, right after these messages.
Hey, UFO conference enthusiasts. We've got another great event for you in 2024. The Saucers and Aliens Kansas UFO Day in Dimension G is being held in the UFO capital of Kansas, Geneseo, on July 6th. This is a fun festival in the middle of nowhere. There will be a parade, decorated yards, costumes, vendors, speakers, and a showing of the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. Appropriately, an 8-foot-tall statue of Gort and a statue of Klaatu will be dedicated. This will be the only museum in the U.S. with these custom-made statues. If you'd like to donate to the statue project or attend the event, visit GeneseoMuseum.com. That's GENESEO Museum.com. Be sure to bring your camera when you attend the event. That's GeneseoMuseum.com.
The UNX Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full-spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the UNX Network website at unxnetwork.com. That's unxnetwork.com.
This is Margie Kay, and I'd like to say thank you to all of our KUNX show hosts, staff, listeners, and viewers for making us number 1 on Paranormal Talk Radio.
While most near-death experiencers return to this plane of existence with alluring tales of their time spent in the presence of the divine, what happens when one crosses the veil into the afterlife, into the void? In the new book, Dying to Meet Them, Mindy Toutfest describes her journey to the afterlife after a devastating aneurysm, how a strange turn of events would lead her to spiritual growth, divine healing, UFO experiences, and a greater understanding of the universe. Get your copy of Dying to Meet Them today at Amazon.com or visit unxmedia.com for more information on this book and more amazing selections from UNX Media Publishing at unxmedia.com.
And welcome back to Paranormal Tonight, live from Contact in the Desert. I'm Dan Harary. We just doubled our audience. We have a huge crowd sitting right here. Thank you, everyone. I'm buying everyone a drink after the show. Okay, so we're back with Ron James. Race, let's bring him back. And there he is, Mr. John Travolta with the Saturday Night Fever, that beautiful white jacket.
All right, I'm not wearing this jacket anymore.
No, I love it. I really do. I'm jealous because if I wore that, I'd spill ketchup on it instantly, and it would never look the same. Okay, so we're here at Contact in the Desert with Ron James, award-winning filmmaker. And Ron, you're going to be showing a sneak peek of your sequel to Accidental Truth UFO Revelations, and the sequel's called Accidental Truth Next. I believe you're showing that on Monday afternoon, June 3rd. What can we look forward to in that film? And what are some of the highlights of it? And perhaps you want to talk about ETs and paranormal things. And before you do, Race, we're going to show some slides now. So can we start on number 3, please?
Yeah. So that's the cover art. That's the new poster for the new movie. I designed it myself.
That's great. Yeah.
I wrestled with
Beautiful.
the title. It's not quite a sequel, and it's not quite a director's cut. And so it's just what's next. We reflect on some of the things in the film that really made a difference in things moving forward. And then I went out and I re-interviewed people like Ralph Blumenthal from the Times, who broke the story about David Grush, went back in the studio with Matthew Modine, fresh interviews with Tim Burchett, and pretty much some new ones too that I'm not going to talk about, but we're showing some clips and letting people know what to expect from the film. It comes out probably the first week of September or so. And we've got some brand new cases. At the end of the day, Accidental Truth was largely about materials and proving that they had these materials and what they were, where they were being studied. And we've got some absolutely mind-blowing things to reveal in this next movie that people are not expecting and that people have not seen. So when you make a film that does as well as Accidental Truth did, and then you try to make the next one, it's like, gee, no pressure there. So again, I didn't want to make a film just for the sake of doing it. So the new film is going to be hopefully as striking as the first one.
Well, a lot of people are looking forward to it, including myself. Race number 4, please. So this is your friend Matthew. You and Matthew Modine. He's a tall guy, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 6'2", and Matthew stands over me. And he's just a pleasure to work with. This is the second time in the studio, and he's given me interviews for the MUFON symposiums twice. We've interacted a lot more than like I just hired an actor and worked with him in the studio for a little bit. I can genuinely say he's just a super great guy, and he's really easy to work with. And I think one of the things about Matthew that strikes me the most is that as big a movie career as he's had, he has raised a family with 2 successful children, and he's been married to the same woman since before he made Full Metal Jacket, and they're still happily married and committed. And in Hollywood, that is like unheard of. And so he has my utmost respect as a person, as an actor, and I just couldn't ask for a better person to work with on my films.
He seems like a very sweet guy. My friend Steve in New York owns a nightclub in Manhattan, a very successful nightclub, and I know Matthew goes there sometimes. Race number 5, please. There's a cute picture of you again with Matthew. Is this staged? Ron, that's staged, man, right? That's staged, that picture, right?
You can sort of. In the very okay, so that was the one you just played was from the very last shoot that I did a couple months ago in New York with them. This was from the very first recording, and there were things in the script.
Okay.
So these are 2 different sessions. The original script for Accidental Truth has just these incredible tongue twisters of things. And Matthew used to say, we'd be in the middle of the session, he'd be like, who talks like that? And we just had this kind of bantering rapport going. And he was laughing at some of the lines I was making him say. And, because we're talking about all these technologies, like piezoelectric magnetic antigravitic drive. He's like, how do you even say that? And so there were times when I would go back into the room and I'd point stuff out and we'd scratch stuff off the script and jot notes. He was really proactive in helping to make the script better. And then when I put the film together, he's like, I can't believe what you got out of what we did. He said, I was lost. And and so that picture, there were plenty of moments like that in the studio.
That's a great picture. I really do like that one. Race number 6, I think, is next. Yeah, there you go. That's really sweet. He does seem. Would you consider him a friend now at this point?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I ran it. When I was in New York doing the voiceover recording with him. That very same day, Accidental Truth was in the Philip K. Dick Film Festival, and so it was a weird calendar thing that happened. And he had another film in the same film festival, so we crossed paths twice in that same day.
That's excellent. All right, race number 7. All right, so this is Ron with his buddy Congressman Tim Burchett, and tell us about your friendship with him.
I went to Washington and interviewed Tim when I was making Accidental Truth. I think it was 2021 or early 2022. And he was willing to do the interview. The MUFON's lobbying group helped me set it up. We had a very candid interview. And in Accidental Truth Next, you are going to see the only video ever made of a UFO investigator briefing a sitting member of Congress about the UFO cover-up from Roswell moving forward ever shot, and maybe even ever done. And it's part of the new film. And right after that, he goes forward and starts really heating up the whole situation in Washington. And I'm not saying that I'm responsible for Tim Burchett deciding to do this, because he was already pretty savvy about all of it, and I only made a small contribution. But yeah, and since then he's been MUFON symposiums a couple times where I've interviewed him, and he was willing to do the next interview in DC. And he makes a cameo in my music video. He wasn't expecting that, but there he is.
I know, that's great. Race number 8, please.
So this is Robert Clotworthy. He narrates Ancient Aliens, and him and I kind of we had a good connection. He introduced me at my speaking engagement at Alien Con, and we stayed in touch. And he made me a phone message. I haven't put it on my phone yet, but I have a phone message that actually says, "It is said that this is the phone for Ron James."
Yeah, that's so great. And he also does get the Skinwalker Ranch show too.
Yeah, he hosts Skinwalker Ranch. I think he does.
And Oak Island.
Yeah, the
Island.
Birth of Oak Island.
Yeah.
And so the music video that we're going to play here, he made me an introduction for that too. So it's the Ancient Aliens guy at the beginning of this music video. It's really funny. So yeah, he's been cool over the years.
All right, so we're going to segue now into that. Race number 9, please. Okay, so Ron, everyone knows you're an accomplished filmmaker, but not everyone knows you're an accomplished musician, guitarist, singer, songwriter. And you and your band, Ron James's Revelations, just released a new EP, Left to Our Devices. And one of those songs is called Oh Aliens. Number 10, Race, number 10. There's the little promo for Oh Aliens. And everyone who's watching right now, we have a very special little surprise. We're going to make the world online debut of Ron James's Oh Aliens music video. We'd like to play that now, and then after we watch it, we will ask Ron some questions about how it all came together. So Race, if you can rock and roll, please, let's show Oh Aliens by Ron James.
Ron James came back from the desert with a tale about a life-changing alien encounter. What if it were true?
us all alone. I wouldn't think to ask. Things are coming way undone. We really are far back. There are dreamers here among us who could see another way. Time is running shorter, might run out of days. Aliens, gotta help me find a way. Aliens, gotta help me save the day. Aliens, oh aliens. Perhaps you could just reach out, let us know you're here. Show us what awaits us beyond the atmosphere. Feels just like a crisis as it all goes up in smoke. Left to our devices, running out of hope. Know that you've been coming here, really don't know why. Spark our wonder and our fear, you are our biggest lie. There's a prime directive, yes I understand. We haven't been selected, what's the master plan? Aliens, gotta help us lead the way. Aliens, gotta help me save the day. Aliens.
And that's exactly the point. This is an issue of government transparency.
It's just a complete cover-up. There's no other reason for it, and it deals with power and greed.
To me, the biggest thing that could happen to humanity is to realize that we're a part of something bigger.
Soon as we accept that they exist, we are not the greatest anymore.
Any real UFO disclosure is going to bring hell to the global system.
They're not one of ours. Then the question is, whose are they?
If a non-human intelligence is truly watching us, will they help us to overcome our self-destructive tendencies? The answer is probably no.
And that was the world premiere of Oh Aliens by Ron James. I'm very proud on my dopey little show, that someone of his stature allowed me
Somebody
to show
had
his
to do
music
it.
video. Somebody had to do it. Might as well be me, I guess, right, Ron?
So you got the unofficial exclusive, but we're not counting it as the official exclusive because we still have to get that one.
I'll tell my mother this weekend. What'd you do at Contact? They'll say world premiere. My mother, 90-year-old Jewish mother. All right, so Ron, let's talk about that. It's a fantastic video, great music. Tell us about the musicians. How did you get so many famous people in there? Just rock and roll. Tell us what you did, man.
Well, you know, from the beginning, this song came from this. Was doing this thing in a pool with my girlfriend one night, a long time ago, ex-girlfriend from years ago, and we were arguing, and I wanted to stop the argument, so I picked her up and I said, "Oh, aliens, bad girlfriend here, come get her." And I was literally just standing there in the pool doing that. Oh, aliens! And years later, I turned it into a song, and then and then it turned into the Oh Aliens project. And I started off with a lot of musicians in Sedona helping me put it together, but over time, I was able to bring in some other people that I never thought I'd get. The guitar player that's playing the solo on there, his name's Adam Schoenfeld, and he's a studio musician in Nashville. He's Tim McGraw's touring guitar player. He's a friend of mine that I met through his wife, Katie Cook, who has her own show on Country Music TV, and she's also a MUFON person, so that's how we met. But Adam's played on 40 #1 songs, and so I was absolutely amazed that he offered to contribute the solo. So as much as I hated stepping on his fantastic guitar work, that's him at the end, just really capturing the feel of the song.
How'd you come up with this, with the storyline? Did you storyboard it? Did you have co-writers? Was this all your
No,
baby?
I did the whole thing. I thought it up. I went out and scouted the place in the desert where we could shoot it, and I had an idea what the storyline was going to be, and I built all the props myself. That little bag he finds and all the stuff he finds in the bag, that folder of classified information, that's all a prop that we built for Accidental Truth that we never used. It's an actual reproduction of the Nimitz report that we redid from scratch, retyped it, relayed it out, blurred the type so it looked like it was an older report. I made that space uniform, bought a bunch of patches and ordered a flight suit and sewed it all together. And that little ball that lights up came from a Star Wars game. And so yeah, I brought a couple of videographer friends of mine. I own a video company, so it wasn't hard to get them. And some of the original guys from Sedona, we went out there, and nobody really understood what I was trying to do. And I was telling my friend Paul Davids, the guy that made that movie Roswell, and he was an executive producer on Accidental Truth. I was like, no, really, I'm going to come out of the cave with the little lit ball that's going to activate the spaceship, and then I'm going to get teleported to a place where the alien flying saucer flies up, and you see all the problems in the world on giant TV screens. And he's looking at me like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
Now it's done. And the idea of having the different people chime in at the end, that was original concept. I just wanted to add really well-known faces in the field. And Robert Cloutworthy, I was half joking because he already made my phone message for me and didn't charge me. And I was like, by the way, could you do this? And he did it, and he sent it to me. And I'm like, okay, I got to use it. And so a lot of things came together to make it the end product. Oh, and Jay Messina, one of my friends heard the song, and it was the original mix. And she said, look, I have a guy in New York that might be able to produce this for you, and I'll pay for it. And I'm like, okay, I'll take that. And it turned out to be this guy named Jay Messina, who has produced 250 records, including the first 5 Aerosmith albums, a bunch of Kiss records, Yoko Ono, Jay Giles Band. I mean, the dude is just a legend.
Is he related? Is he related to the Messina, Loggins and Messina?
He's not, but I mean, this guy's pedigree is like as good as it gets. And he mixed the song. He did an amazing job. And then I got to meet him in New York because I brought him into the Matthew Modine recording session. And he invites me to his house to meet his wife and his cats. And his walls are covered with platinum and gold records. And I walk up and I start looking at them, and every one of them has his name on it. And I'm like, wow. I don't know how this happened. So I got a #1 guitar player. I got a legendary producer. And, you know, I'm just a basic guitar player that can occasionally write a song. I got serious about music again when COVID hit. So I don't even have a lifelong history as an active musician. But I knew what I wanted to accomplish, and I knew that I could write it and perform it. And then a lot of really cool things just came together. And I think I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, you have a who's who. You have Eric Von Daniken, Richard Dolan, Travis Walton, who happens to be a friend of yours, Gary Nolan. It's really, that really did come together nicely, man. You really did.
And those are all interviews that I personally shot. So it's not like I went on the internet and found these guys saying stuff. I don't think that would have passed fair use. So yeah, that's all my original material.
Yeah. You know, between Accidental Truth and your Oh Aliens, I think you're on a roll, my friend. I think you're on a roll.
You know, at the end of the day, it's about art. When I finished Accidental Truth, I didn't want to be in front of the computer all the time. So I actually started doing these limited edition 3D printed things that I could build with my hands. And I created a whole ability to make and print T-shirts that I could do with my hands. So, you know, anytime you're creating stuff, and truthfully, I'm just as gratified when somebody buys one of my T-shirt designs as I am when somebody tells me that they liked my movie. So if you can make art and you can survive doing it, there's no bigger blessing.
That's very true. That's very cool. Race, can we see number 11, please? Okay, so Ron, this is a upcoming project, a little project you have, UFO game. Please tell us about this one.
So this is where'd she go? She left. This is Sky Lefevre and Katie Cook, Adam Schoenfeld's wife, and we brought them into my studio, and they reviewed MUFON cases, and we put together a show. It's about 2 hours long, where they will look at the best visual evidence that MUFON got, and then they will discuss the case and try to guess what the outcome was, and then we allow the audience to kind of guess, and then we bring in the MUFON investigators that investigated the cases to tell us how they turned out. And it's cute and it's clever, and it's going to be coming out on Amazon pretty soon.
Is your goal, that one sounds like it would be a wonderful TV series. Would that be your goal for this one?
I'm working on kind of like a UFO news and variety show that's got a bunch of different segments and contributions from different people. And this will be a part of that. The concept is really cool, and it might have legs on its own. We'll see how it's received when it comes out. Katie and Sky did a really good job, so it's really fun to watch.
I didn't know Katie was Adam's wife. You had mentioned that to me. Yeah, so that makes sense.
Katie has her own show on Country Music TV.
Right.
She's all over the Country Music Awards, and you see her all the time interviewing the royalty of country music. But Adam is her husband. And they came to a MUFON symposium where we all hung out and gambled and played really bad blackjack. I shouldn't reveal to the public, but Adam shouldn't play blackjack. But anyway, then they came to Sedona.
But you're personal friends with them now.
Yes. They came to Sedona, and we did this really funny thing. He was playing with Tim McGraw in Scottsdale, and they said, "Hey, we have a chance to come up to Sedona." And so they came up, and they were like, "What are we going to do?" And I said, "Well, there's an open mic. Why don't you come see how the other half lives?" And it was kind of a joke. He's like, "I'll do it." So we go to open mic. We don't tell anybody who he is, okay, except for a couple of people, because I just wanted him to have the experience of, you know, just going someplace where nobody knows you. And so he gets up and he's going to play. Yeah, he's playing my acoustic. And he says, "Hey, my name's Adam. I'm going to start off with a song I wrote for Faith Hill." And everybody's looking at, whatever, you know, and he starts playing the song. And people still weren't quite sure what to make of it. And then his wife came up, and finally he started talking a little bit more about who he was. And people started to catch on. But Sedona is one of those places where you could be the most famous person on the earth and nobody cares, which is why it's a fun place to live. But that's a cool Adam Schoenfeld story. Yeah. I remember the audience, a song I wrote for Faith Hill, and people are just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, they probably said it's full of shit. That is a good story.
It was pretty fun.
Race number. We have a few minutes left. Race number 12, please. This is your show, Space Time. This is on MUFON TV, correct?
Yeah. I don't make as many episodes of it as I should. I'm still kind of toying with the formula for the program, but there's some really good episodes on MUFON TV, and you can go to MUFON Television.
What's the premise on this one?
I just cover different stories. It's kind of like a news show where I'm imagine it's 60 minutes with a little bit of humor for UFOs, and so we cover different topics, and I just do the stand-ups and cut to graphics and cut to whatever we have supporting the story.
And this is at that beautiful set at your studio where I was a few weeks ago, correct? This is at your studio? Yeah. It's a really nice set down there. I saw it, people. It was really quite nice. Okay, last slide is number 13. You are good friends with Lou Elizondo. I guess this was an early version of Accidental Truth. Is that correct?
It was, yeah. That's what came out to Accidental Truth. That's Lou and I at the interview that I shot with him. It was 2017, late or early 2018. Okay. And yeah, like I said, it was one of the only interviews that he did where he was in a good studio environment. You see him all over Zoom and Skype and stuff, and it's not very good quality. But this was a really well shot interview, and he gave me a lot of really good information. And little fun fact, right before he came into the room, he was speaking at the MUFON Symposium, and he had to wear a bulletproof vest because he was getting threatened. And he came into the room, took off the bulletproof vest before we shot the interview. But that's what he was dealing with back then. And he's still dealing with it now, unfortunately.
Wow. That is, and Nothing to Hide was the working title before you
Nothing
came up
to
with
Hide was the working title, yeah.
Nothing to Hide. Working title, yeah. That was a good one too, but I think Accidental Truth, I think you nailed it with that one. You're going to be doing some presentations here at Contact. We have 2 minutes left. Ron, tell us what you're going to be doing and what you hope to achieve while you're here the next couple of days.
So my first presentation is UAP and the Nature of Reality. And it's all about how this phenomenon is teaching us things about how our world works and what we are in relationship to the universe, just as much of as it's a debate about whether they're from Mars or Zeta Reticuli or another dimension. There are life lessons inside the phenomenon. It's about that. And then sneak preview for the movie.
And the next world debut of O Aliens too.
Oh yeah, we're gonna play the O Aliens song for the audience again. So that'll be fun. We were gonna play the song live, but it was just too impractical to get the band out. But I did bring my guitar, and Sky's got her keyboard, so we still might do it.
Oh, you are going to do that? You are going to do that?
We haven't decided, but we might.
No, you should. You really should. And you have the MUFON booth. You're running the MUFON booth here as well.
We have the MUFON booth and all kinds of T-shirt designs that I've made, and some limited edition little statues that I made for Ron Janix and the crew here at Contact in the Desert. So it's fun. I come with a full toolbox to the Contact in the Desert.
You covered the whole gamut. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this for me. I really appreciate it. And
Accidental Truth next. It'll be out.
Accidental Truth next.
Summer or fall.
Right. And Oh Aliens is going to be the next number one. We're going to replace Taylor Swift with imagine Aliens beats Taylor Swift. The headline would be all over the world. Be the top headline and all over the world. Thank you for doing this. Contactingthedesert.com. And anyone who's in SoCal, the next 4 or 5 days, check us out. Everyone's here. It's really a lot of fun. Everyone here is wonderful. The resort is gorgeous. Renaissance Hotel, Indian Wells. Contactingthedesert.com. I'm Dan Harary. Thank you, Ron James, for being my friend and doing this for me. It really means a great deal, and I really appreciate that you did this for me. And next week, I'm hoping to have a tribute to my dear friend, Michelle Phillips from the Mamas and the Papas, because next week she turns 80 years old, and she's a dear friend of mine. So my brother Race, my producer, and I are working on a special tribute to Michelle Phillips, the one and only from Mamas and the Papas. That'll be next week. Thank you for watching. Come back next week, live from Hollywood. It's Paranormal Tonight. I'm Dan Harary. Keep looking up at the skies, and if you see any UFOs, write to me, write to Ron James, and we'll
report it to MUFON. Yes, UFO reports.
Report it to MUFON. Report it to MUFON, not to me or Ron James. Thanks, everyone. See you next week. Thank you very much.